You're very welcome to our series of interviews I've been doing with Irish home educated adults. Today, I'm not interviewing somebody in person, but Diane Duffy has gifted us with an account of her career to date. So this is in Diane's own words. I was born in 1980, the second of 10 children, brought up on a small farm and educated at home. Being at the front end of the family, it was probably a bit experimental. My folks were finding their feet with the whole home education thing. When we were small children, we were taught in a classroom format, learning the same things that our school-going contemporaries were learning. At this early stage, I enjoyed maths and English, and my competitive nature was coming through. I think I would have enjoyed school had I gone. I can only speculate. I was independent. I liked being set tasks, and I liked to compete and get answers quicker than the others. My mother says I was a bossy child. For example, if we were playing some game, I would be organising people into teams, telling people where to stand, etc. I guess in later years, these were useful management skills, but at the time I probably drove everyone mad. Although we didn't realise it at the time, playing cards was quite a big part of our education, teaching us math and strategy. Dad was an excellent card player who loved bridge, cribbage, 25 and numerous other games which he taught us to play. I dabbled in the poker world as an adult, enjoying learning strategy and reading a good bit about game theory, but ultimately the lifestyle was too sedentary for me. I did learn to deal cards to casino standard, and I funded some of my college years dealing at big tournaments, which was very enjoyable, and I learned a lot about the game too. Mum was very academic and had been a brilliant student herself. She has a degree in archaeology and has worked on and off as we grew up on sites. And she took care of much of our academic education. Although I was literate and enjoyed the schoolwork, as my parents became less formal, the home education naturally morphed to unschooling. Then our small holding where we lived became my education. We had a variety of animals, eventually incorporating a pony, which I supposedly hounded my parents to get. As it turned out, I was quite serious about learning horsemanship, and it is a theme that has been there throughout my life. We didn't have much money. My parents both worked very hard, but opted to spend almost all their time at home with their children, running a small farm and garden. At my insistence, they sent me to horse riding lessons, and I taught my siblings what I'd learned when we eventually got a pony of our own. When we were stuck for space and grazing, we kept our pony at a local riding school. I used to cycle over and muck out stables in exchange for part of the keep. I also snuck onto as many other horses as I could during this time to further my experience. When I was 13, I started working 6 mornings a week riding out race horses for a local farmer and breeder of point-to-point horses, amateur 3-mile steeplechasers. I cycled the 2.5 miles to work every morning, and on Saturday I would get a cheque for £20. My parents always encouraged us to save money, and I put £5 into my credit union account every week. In my time working there, the main horse I used to look after won 6 races in a row, which was very unusual, and I was now hooked on the buzz of jump racing. I wanted to ride in races myself, and at 14 I was jumping these horses over steeplechase fences and getting closer to my dream. When I was 15, I progressed to working in another nearby yard. Liam, my boss there, specialised in problem horses. He also broke young horses and trained a few point-to-pointers. He was a brilliant horseman. I learned a massive amount from my 2 years working there. Also, I was now making £60 a week and saving 20, so I felt pretty rich. I kept saving. By the time I convinced Dad to get a racehorse of our own, I was starting to buy my own racing equipment for when my big day riding in a race finally came. While I was assisting Dad's cousin to break a couple of young horses, I liked one of the horses we were working with, and I asked Dad to come and look at him. He liked him too, and he bought him. We finished breaking him and prepared him to go racing. He turned out to be a brilliant and consistent point-to-pointer, racing for years, teaching me and any of my siblings who were interested in race riding lots, winning about 10 races and being runner-up countless times. During the first season I was riding him, when I was 18, we won 4 races in a row. He was the key to me winning a series of ladies' races, which I helped to get off the ground with a few other female amateur jockeys. It probably all happened very quickly for me in the end. Most likely, I didn't appreciate how difficult it is to achieve such success. After race riding for a few seasons and continuing to learn my trade, I went to New York City when I was 22. I'd never lived anywhere except Ireland, although I lived away from home during my horsey years, and I fancied a change of scene for the summer. I was working in a music bar in Greenwich Village, and I ended up staying there and changing tack altogether. I was making very good money, and my focus came away from horses for the first time and onto a wider world I had been aware of. I was very green, fresh off the boat, and I even assumed that New Yorkers would know what point-to-pointing was. Anyway, I learned to make cocktails, take orders, deal with people, count cash, etc. I had a great time and I made great friends. I was living there illegally, so when my sister announced her wedding, it was time to decide to either stay or go. I came home for the wedding. The travel bug was still there, so I went to Australia and New Zealand for a year after the wedding on a work visa. I looked up a long-lost cousin in Australia who had a motel, restaurant and wedding catering business. I worked there for a month or so at a time, saved up a bit of money, and then backpacked around. I worked in the kitchen there, prepping food, plating up starters and desserts, washing dishes, anything and everything. I also used to work in the garden or paint buildings for my employers. Any odd job that needed doing, I would do it to fund travel. After returning home, I became curious about third level education. After researching courses, I ended up taking a part-time Bachelor of Arts BA in Counselling and Psychotherapy in the Dublin Business School of Arts in Dublin. As I was now a mature student, 25, enrolling in the course was straightforward. I worked full-time for autistic adults in residential care on a local farm to fund my study. I learned a lot in this job and possibly could have continued into management. I loved the course. It was my first time in a classroom, age 25. I enjoyed the work, the continuous assessments, and I even found the exams manageable. The lectures were very good and I made some good friends too. There was a lot of self-development included in the course, including stress management, which has served me very well over the years. And I also had to be in therapy myself for some of it, to observe the process I was studying and help me get to know myself and my own biases more completely. When it came to work experience, I knew I didn't want to be a counsellor, not yet anyway. I felt I was too young to take on such a heavy career, and I thought that what I'd learned about myself during the course made me think I'd find it very hard not to take my work home with me. My lecturers leaned on me to continue. I had done very well academically, and they thought I would be good at the job. I wanted to keep looking as regards which direction my career might take. At this point, the younger members of the family were heading in much more creative directions to the older ones. When we were younger, my parents were all about hard work on the farm. As they mellowed with age, so too did their kids. My younger siblings were very talented in music and other creative areas, and I was curious. My younger sister was doing the permaculture course in Kinsale College at the time, and on a visit to her, I saw the play being performed by the drama class. We were behind the scenes and it was brilliant fun. I decided to enroll just to do something completely different. Although I'm no actor, I enjoyed the experience and I ended up in stage management. That bossiness was coming in handy again. I worked throughout the 2-year course in restaurants in Kinsale. By the time the course finished, I was managing quite a large cafe. I managed restaurants for a few years after the course finished. I also took up running and eventually triathlons. In this time, I met my partner, Brian, a farmer from just outside Kinsale. He's also a marine engineer, and he was a boat mechanic on trawlers when we met. Shortly afterwards, he was offered a really good job in Aberdeen, Scotland. He moved over for a few years. I joined him there for a year where I got a job as a cafe supervisor and completed a course in personal training. We moved home together to Kinsale and built a house on his land. In a strange twist of fate, I'm also training a couple of racehorses again. Having tried just about every career in the book, my life has come back to my first love, horses. Throughout my adult life, no matter where I've lived, I've never had trouble getting work or making ends meet. I've always worked hard and I'm lucky to have a lot of energy, just like both my parents. Is it better to do one job and stay at it for life? I'll never know. Sometimes I wonder, am I a jack of all trades and master of none? I've had many varied experiences though. I have great friends, a great supportive family, a partner who I love, and I'm now old enough that nobody ever asks me if I went to school or not. Plenty of people I know don't even know that I was educated at home. Would I send my own kids to school if I had any? I don't know, to be honest. I think one of the reasons it worked for mum and dad was that there were quite a lot of us. Also, mum and dad were home most of the time, which I think was quite important too. Although I know that isn't possible for everyone. I have huge respect for my parents for raising us as they did when practically nobody was doing it. From what I can see, all of their 10 adult children are good, functional, hardworking people, and 4 of them are excellent parents themselves. That's about all anyone can hope for. So thanks a million to Diane for sharing her wisdom over 40 years with us, and yeah, look forward to seeing if any more of her siblings will chat to us over the while. Thanks a million.